It's practice day number 8 from the start in Frisco Training Camp 2020 for the Dallas Cowboys as we bring you Training Camp Live presented by American Airlines. Travel with confidence, the official airlines of the Dallas Cowboys. Nick Eatman alongside myself, Kyle Yeomans. And Nick, we're breaking down this practice. It was a shorter practice today for Mike McCarthy and company, but a lot of situational work for both the offensive side that's going to be very valuable heading into later this week.
Yeah, I think you can't stress enough just the fact that you're trying to squeeze all of these things into just a few weeks. I mean, all the OTAs, all the mini camps, all the things that happen in the spring that are you just teach the basic fundamentals, and you're working it all into here. And it's a new system, it's a new terminology, it's new to everything. So you're going to get everything you thrown at these players at once. It seems like they're doing a pretty good job with it, but you kind of take for granted that you have to work on into the game plays and 2-point plays and things like that, which is what they did a lot of today.
And you're still installing an offense. You're still throwing some different wrinkles into that defense as well as you head into live game action. I mean, we're less now from week 1 of the season. One of the really key components of that offense, though, that hasn't been talked about a whole lot because of the wide receivers, because of the running backs and quarterbacks, it's this tight end group. And it's really the depth that they've shown at tight end. This is a group that I thought shined today. Nick Dalton Schultz had a pretty fantastic play that we'll see later on here in Training Camp Live. And then, of course, Blake Jarwin now is tight end 1. There's a lot to be excited about this group moving forward.
I say he's tight end 1 because of what they paid him and what he starts, but you don't always see that. It's hard to kind of gauge how they're going to play certain positions based off just what you see in practice, and so they're trying to mix in different things. But I know Schultz gets a lot more reps than I was anticipating him getting. Blake Bell gets some reps in there as well. But it'll be interesting to see how they deal. You see 86 Schultz, what they're going to do with him. His first 2 years hasn't really had a big impact. You don't really consider him much of a blocker, and he hasn't been that great of a pass catcher. He hasn't just had the ball a lot. So how they use him will be interesting. I didn't expect to see a lot of 13 personnel with the 1 back and the 3 tight ends, but we are seeing that a little bit more. So it's still early, but yeah, they're going to utilize these tight ends for sure.
And you saw both Blake Jarwin and Blake Bell. Of course, Blake Bell brought in this offseason from the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. There's another new addition, Clinton Dix, veteran, playing around a little bit with Cheeto Awuzie, kind of that corner group that has so many questions around it, but it's nice to see that they're still having a little bit of fun here.
Yeah, having some fun. This is obviously all the turnover ball drills. This team can't stress it enough that they haven't gotten the many turnovers the last few years. But it's not something that's new as far as teaching them to strip the ball. I mean, it's always been an emphasis. It just hasn't happened. So you hope that this team can get more pressure or just get more catalytic players that the ball can kind of bounce their way a little bit more. But yeah, you mentioned safety, Clinton Dix. That's very similar to the tight end where you don't always know exactly. There's Darian Thompson right there. He's a player that's been getting a lot of reps here the last few days. And so you don't really have a good gauge on what they're going to do. And I think that's exactly what Mike McCarthy wants, is not to have that gauge.
It's confusing for an offense just as much as it's confusing for media members, and we haven't been able to get a real grasp as to what they're doing defensively. But one thing we do know is the emphasis is on forcing turnovers. Trayvon Diggs, the cornerback rookie out of Alabama, there you see him. He's a guy who forced 3 interceptions and had a couple return touchdowns as a defender for the Crimson Tide in college. He's hoping to take that and translate it to the next level as well. Another thing that we really saw today was some competition, some situational work. And you see this in this drill. It's just a run drill where you have the entire offensive line, and it's mano-a-mano, best man wins against the defensive line. We've seen the defensive line dominate throughout camp, Nick, but what do you think about the offensive line today and how they stood up?
Well, I thought they did much better. And remember, I mean, this is not the starting offensive line. Lyle Collins and Tyron Smith and Cam Irving are all out. So, you're dealing with 4 and 5 and 6 on the offensive tackle position. You don't expect 5 and 6 to make the team. So, it's going to be a tough go for them, and they just have to keep rotating against really good defensive linemen back and forth. But I thought they did a pretty good job. I thought Brandon Knight had a nice practice today because you didn't see D Law wrecking the practice, and so that means
Mm-hmm.
that Brandon Knight I thought did a pretty good job on that right side. But here are some of those running backs that you see that this is kind of a middle run or inside run drill that they've done for years, and it'll be fun to kind of watch and see these guys continue to mix it up there. You see Leighton Vander Esch, he's got that neck roll on, but so far so good with him.
Yeah, he looks healthy, and you got to see a lot of that linebacking depth in this drill with a guy like Luke Gifford and Joe Jackson, and really an entirety of that linebackers core. There's Gifford right there putting hands on Darius Anderson, the undrafted free agent out of TCU, as he's trying to fight and make a roster spot at the running
You
back
know,
position, as you see now that defensive
I
line as well, Nick.
Yeah, and you said Darius Anderson. I see 42 Rico Dowdle. I see him
Mm.
doing a lot of things, and it's really tough though to evaluate running backs in preseason I'm sorry, training camp, just because you don't. They're always going to the end zone every time. Doesn't matter if they get stuffed at 2 yard loss, they're going to run to the end zone. So it's hard to really tell. But it's all about awareness. And there's Bernard right there, Francis Bernard. He's always seems to be around the ball too.
He always seems to be in our training camp lives, and Nick always points him out because he has the big hair, but he also has a big role already as also an
Yeah.
undrafted free agent on that defensive side.
It just when you look at the numbers at linebacker, you mentioned some guys earlier, the backup spots. I mean, there's going to be you got the first two, then you got a role for Sean Lee. Then there's Joe Thomas. He's a veteran guy that's been out there and he's played a lot. He's played for McCarthy before. And then you got Luke Gifford, Francis Bernard, Justin March. I mean, there's a spot there, and I think Bernard has a good chance of making it. I mean, if I had to
Uh,
say one undrafted free agent, he might be one because there's not going to be a lot of undrafted free agents that can make this team.
Now he talked about, or Mike McCarthy talked about that in his press conference earlier today, that they are swimming upstream. It's a tougher road for some of those young guys to make a roster.
Mm-hmm.
Francis Bernard's been swimming upstream pretty efficiently, at least throughout the
Yeah.
course of training camp, with the plays he's been able to make. Now, we saw some plays made as well on the defensive side of the football and the offensive side. We'll take a look at a couple highlights here. First, we'll start on the defensive side of the football. Dak Prescott dropping back to pass, trying to find Wilson over the top, and instead, Cheeto Awuzie elevating over Cedric Wilson to make the interception here. Pretty nice to see a good play from Cheeto. That's a confidence builder that really he's needed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's had, I think, one interception maybe the last 3 years, one each, I believe is his stats. So the ball doesn't come his way a lot, but you can see the leaping ability there. He's got a chance to make those plays. I think he's had another interception in his career very similar to that. So it is nice to see a guy that can go up and get the football. He was banged up a bit too. He walked off and had the doctors and trainers looking at him. I think he was able to get back into practice. It didn't look too serious, but obviously this was the most memorable part of the afternoon for him.
And the most memorable part on the offensive side of the football was obviously Dalton Schultz. Another similar type play, but how about Schultz going up over Jalen Smith on the sideline, reeling it in, tugging the ball away from Smith, and bringing that one down with 2 feet.
Yeah, that's the best highlight that I can remember Dalton Schultz has made since he's been here. A practice or a game. And what I like about that play is going back to what just seeing Dak on the run. That is something that they're really working on a lot. You see that this isn't just a breakdown play. They are working on him running and throwing. And he had another play, Kyle. I don't know if you saw it. He was going to his left and threw the ball across his body to Amari Cooper on a play very similar to this, just the other way. He's done a really nice job of throwing the ball on the run. But yeah, good news for Dalton Schultz. He needs to make plays like this. And also, let's be honest about Jalen Smith. That's a good play. That's a good defensive play. I mean, he didn't go and get the ball. The tight end made the play, but for him to be down the field like that, that's not the worst coverage we've seen. And so, a lot of good things happening there. Good throw, good coverage, Better catch, though, by Dalton Schultz.
Absolutely. A great catch. And even though Jalen Smith was in the right spot, positional wise, defensively, just wasn't able to get a hand on the football. And I agree with what you said about Dak Prescott and rolling out, throwing on the run. That's something that Mike McCarthy's put his stamp on this quarterback group already, something that he's been really working on with Kellen Moore, with the entire quarterback group, and something that they have continued to progress in throughout the course of training camp. But that's going to do it here for Training Camp Live, presented by American Airlines. As always, travel with confidence, the official airlines of the Dallas Cowboys. But for Nick Eatman, I'm Kyle Yeomans. We'll see you next time on Training Camp Live.